Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Dubs the Angry Black Conservative. I am your host, Dubs. I just want to say first and foremost that I hope everyone is okay and that you are taking the COVID 19 thing seriously. I'm not really going to get into it all that much tonight. I just want to say I hope everyone is doing well and you're taking whatever precautions you think are necessary, and my best to you and your families. Now, the thing I wanted to get into tonight is Black Lives Matter. I'm not really going to get into the protests right now. I'm going to do that on another edition. I just want to talk about Black Lives Matter as an organization. So I've been getting a lot of questions, and people have been coming at me about it because I have a huge problem with Black Lives Matter as an organization. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is really simple. This idea that the organization of Black Lives Matter can be divorced from the sentiment of Black Lives Matter. And on the surface, I think that's a noble thing. I think that's a good exercise in rhetoric. But I'm going to ask you this question. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that you like or love the sentiment Black Lives Matter, but you have your issues with Black Lives Matter as an organization, and you're able to divorce those two things, and you're able to do the mental gymnastics to divorce those two things. And I say, okay, great, you can do that. I think that's fantastic. Are you also willing to accept the concept on the Confederate flag? That the Confederate flag, you can divorce from the Confederate flag the idea that it is for people from the South, a symbol of their patriotism for their individual states. It's a symbol of strength for the people who come from the South, in that they had painted that on tanks during World War II when they were going into battle and when they were liberating Jews from the concentration camps and everything else. And it's a symbol of unity for them because that's the symbol of their state, of their area of the country. But they also can divorce from that the fact that it was a symbol of rebellion. It was a symbol of the South seceding from the Union. It was a symbol of those states that wanted to remain slave states. So if you're saying to me that you can divorce those two things, then cool. If you say to me that you can't divorce those two things, well, then you can't divorce Black Lives Matter from the sentiment and the organization. It just doesn't work. It's not a good argument. And so I'll tell you my feelings about it. Um, when you say to me Black Lives Matter, all I think of is the organization. I can't think of the sentiment because the sentiment of it in and of itself, I think it is intellectually lazy to say that Black Lives Matter. And the reason why I say that is because to me, all lives matter. I don't make any distinction between the amount of melanin that somebody has in their skin or draw that line in the sand of when our ancestors decided to sit someplace long enough to develop the characteristics that would call us black. Because as you guys know, I have a huge problem with the whole race thing. I think people who are concerned about race, I think that they're, again, being intellectually lazy. Let's talk about differences in culture. Let's talk about differences in thought process based on those cultures. And then we can have, I think, an adult conversation. But if you're going to talk to me about, this whole thing where, black lives and what and this and Italian no, lives matter. I don't care how much melanin is in their skin. So I want to really just jump into this with both feet. Again, I will say I despise the Black Lives Matter movement. I despise the organization, which is funded by the Tides Foundation. And the Tides Foundation is a fantastic organization for laundering money for leftist organizations. So if you're in bed with Tides or if you're in bed with Black Lives Matter, you've got some serious issues that you need to discuss. So let's talk about this thing. So I've been on their website and I love reading I call it a manifesto. They may call it their mission statement or whatever. To me, it's a manifesto, and I'm gonna quote some things from their webpage. And again, do your own homework. Please don't believe anything I tell you. Look it up yourself. Figure out whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong. Or maybe I should use a different term. You should figure out whether or not I'm accurate in the facts that I use. And if you find that I'm accurate in the facts that I use, you can come to a different conclusion, which I have no issue with. But facts are facts. And if those facts are, you know, inconvenient for you and your world think, I can't do anything about that. I can't do anything about that. So first and foremost, with Black Lives Matter, they are working for a world where black lives are no longer systematically targeted for demise. That's on their website. So I have to say to myself, because I have to ask the question, where is the systematic targeting of the demise of black folks? Where is that? And don't give me platitudes about how, well, because the police are killing all the black people, because we're going to get into that in a few minutes. Um, Give me that systematic target thing that we've got, because I've said this before. If we're going to talk about this, we have to, and we're talking about deaths, because that's what Black Lives Matter said. They are here to stop the brutalization and the killing of black people by the police. That's what they say that they were originally founded for. Now, in their mission statement, they say that they were founded back when Trayvon Martin was unfortunately killed by George Zimmerman. Well, George Zimmerman wasn't a cop, and George Zimmerman wasn't white. George Zimmerman was Hispanic. And I loved how they talked about it in the news. First, it was, he was brutally killed by this white man. And then they started talking about his name being Zimmerman. He was killed by this Jew. And then when they found out what his heritage was, he was a Spanish man. And so the press, and I love them for these gymnastics that they do to get their narrative across. They started referring to George Zimmerman as a white Hispanic. And I just think that that's fantastic. They had to figure out some way of connecting this to a black white crime. And let's not even talk about the doctored 911 call that was put out for public, where they try to make it seem like Zimmerman was saying he's a black boy. No, the 911 operator asked him to describe him, and then he said, "Well, he's a black boy." So that's a big issue. But in any case, they say that's how they came into being. Well, there's no police brutality on that. Zimmerman thought that Trayvon was somebody who didn't belong in the neighborhood. He approached Trayvon, told Trayvon, "You've got to do this, you've got to do that." Trayvon disagreed with that. They got into a fight. Trayvon got on top of him and did a ground and pound and beat the snot out of him and was essentially killing him. If somebody's grabbing your head and smashing your head repeatedly into the ground, well, the intention at that point is to kill you. Zimmerman had a gun. He shot Trayvon. We got a terrible tragedy, and it's just that simple. I would really have liked for Trayvon to still be alive. I don't want anyone being shot and killed. Certainly when it's over, I'm not going to call it a mistaken identity, but let's just say that I thought George overstepped his bounds, even though he was trying to protect his neighborhood, his community. I think he overstepped his bounds. I think that he should have been found guilty of at least manslaughter, manslaughter two. Certainly certainly not murder one. But hey, it is what it is, and I can't do anything about that. And I haven't read all of the documents for that court case, so I really can't talk about it too much, and I'm not going to. But the fact of the matter is, there were no police involved. So when Black Lives Matter says that they came into being because of that, and they want to stop police brutality of black folks, well, it's just not true. It doesn't match what they say their origin is. So that's the first thing. Secondly, again, quoting from their website, "We affirm our humanity, our contributions to this society, and our resilience in the face of deadly oppression." Where's the deadly oppression? Because I don't know where it is. I don't see it. I've been a black man for 52 years in the country of the United States. I'm looking around right now in the year 2020, and I'm looking for this deadly oppression. And frankly, the only oppression that I see, the only oppression that I am uh, a witness to, is oppression of black conservatives in this country and of other conservatives in this country. As far as oppression of being a black man, I haven't sniffed that in decades. I really haven't. And again, that's anecdotal, but if you can show me this systematic oppression, this deadly oppression that is victimizing black people in this country, I would love to hear it. Now, if you start throwing crime statistics at me, I'm totally cool. We can certainly talk about that. But the problem is that if that is the case, then why is there so much black on black crime? Why is it that when my grandmother and my grandfather's house was broken into by a crazy guy who was threatening to kill them both and was going to be robbing them, it was a black man? It wasn't a white man. It certainly wasn't a police officer doing it. That was a black man. So let's, where is that oppression coming from? Where is this systematic target of demise coming from? Again, all I see statistically in all these crimes is black people hurting other black people. Then the police come. Well, if you didn't have the black person hurting the second black person, the police wouldn't have had to come. So if you want to get rid of, if you're one of those people who says, I need to get the police out of the community because the police are bad, okay, fine. Tell our brothers and sisters to stop preying upon our other brothers and sisters, and that'll stop. You know. So that's another point I want to make. And then I'll make another quote from their website. The call for Black Lives to Matter is a rallying cry for all Black lives striving for liberation, which would imply we need to be liberated. Well, we had the Emancipation Proclamation in 1860. Well, it went into play January 1st of 1863. So the Emancipation Proclamation, real quick on it, was a basically, I think it was an IOU. This is the way I like to look at it, from Abraham Lincoln. So Abe is sitting there and he's trying to figure out what we're going to do, how we're going to get this message across. And he basically says, we're going to do an Emancipation Proclamation. And what that's going to do is that's going to free all black people in southern states, that, and it will come to fruition at the end of the Civil War. What does that do? Well, what it does, it was, I'm sorry, excuse me, it's for the border states, pardon me. And what did that do? What that does is that tells all the black folks in those states that are on the border that they can be free after the Civil War. So what it does is it gave them motivation to break their bonds at that point, join in with the Union to help the Union suppress the rebellion of the South so that they could be free at the end of the war. And therefore, the war also might end a little faster because we've got all these extra men jumping into the Union Army. So that's the Emancipation Proclamation. Then after that, you've got the Civil War ends. Those guys are free, and now we start working on the real cool amendments. The anti-slave, all slaves are free. We got the 14th, we've got the 13th, we got the 15th, we've got Reconstruction. Things are beautiful and lovely in this country. So we are one of the first countries to make it illegal to have slaves. So if you can name for me 3 other countries that made it illegal to have slaves in the 1800s, I'd love to hear from you. But the fact of the matter is that slavery was part of the human condition. It was part of the human culture. There were slaves all over the world. Slavery was all over the world. It was part of the human condition. And so when the United States went to war against it, we are the first and only country that has ever done that. And if you start looking at that time period through the context of the time, you will see how amazing that is. And I'm not going to go into it too much. I've actually been asked to go into that whole process of slavery, getting rid of slavery and the Republican Party and all the other stuff and everything. I've been asked to do that on another podcast, so I'm going to do that. But I just want to give that 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 foundation. So we've been liberated, and throughout each decade, we have been able to define what that liberation is. We've been able to grow with that, getting rid of Jim Crow laws and voter tests and all that other stuff. So in this country, for Black people, it's gotten better and better. And I really can't name another country in the world where Black people have it better than in the United States. Do we have room to grow? We certainly do. Do we have room to improve? We certainly do. Totally cool with that. But you know what? There's always room for improvement on anything. There is no such thing as perfection. The idea is that you continue to strive for perfection, but nothing is perfect because humans are flawed, and therefore we will never reach perfection. But we need to strive for the perfection. So, but in any case, so that's what I say about that. Now, let's talk about all these Black people who are being killed by all these police officers and stuff, right? So let's just go over the numbers. So first and foremost, police shootings of Black people have declined over the last 40 years by 75%. Where's the oppression? Where's the systematic targeting for our demise? If over the last 40 years, Black people have been shot 75% less by police over the last 40 years, I don't understand it. The numbers don't match the narrative. And if you keep telling me, well, no, there's more and more of us being killed every year, but the numbers don't show that. Now, where can you go for numbers? You can go to the FBI, you can go to the CDC. There's all kinds of facts and statistics from different states and everything else. You can look this stuff easy, look this stuff up easily. It's not that big a deal. But somehow, when I'm talking to my brothers and sisters about this, and I say, how many Black people are being killed every thousands of Black people being killed every year by these police. Really? I don't see that. I don't see that at all. The numbers just don't match that. And again, if the numbers don't match, you've heard me say it before, numbers don't lie, people do, when then those people are lying. So, what is that issue? What is that cause? If Black Lives Matter as an organization really wanted to help out Black people, and they're concerned about Black people, if they're talking about how we affirm, we strive for this, we want Black people to be strong and blah blah blah. Cool, no problem. What is the biggest problem? Because I'm a big rock, little rock kind of guy. And basically the way that example works is that if you had a jar filled with big rocks and little rocks, and then I empty out that jar and I tell you, I want you to fill that jar up. What's the first thing you put in the jar? Do you fill it with the big rocks? Do you fill it with the little rocks? You fill it with the big rocks. The reason why you fill it with the big rocks is because once the big rocks are in the jar, you pour in the little rocks, and the little rocks fill in all the cracks. That's how you refill the jar. If you fill it in with the little rocks, the big rocks are going to come in, and you're going to have spaces between them because the little rocks are already down at the bottom of the jar. So when I say I'm a big rock kind of guy, I'm looking for bang for buck. I'm looking for what's the one thing that we can do that can move the needle the most? Big rocks versus little rocks. When you're thinking of that, when you're looking at that, when you're studying that, when you're researching that, we have one commonality. We're talking about childhood violence. We are talking about graduating high school. We're talking about going to college and graduating college or a trade school. We're talking about staying out of jail. We're talking about making sure that our people are employed. We're talking about all of these factors and all of those statistics. They all have one commonality. When we find Black people failing in those categories, the number one commonality between all of those big problems in the Black community is single parent households. And if you get ticked off about it when somebody says that to you, especially if it's a white person saying that to you, I can't help you. I cannot help you because that is the truth. All the commonalities, all those things. What's the commonality between them all? Single parent household, not having a father in the home. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. And if you have these black leaders who are saying, we've got to help out black people, we got to get the black community squared away. Okay, cool. Then the first thing you need to talk about is black men not being fathers to their children. And if you are not doing that, then I have an issue with what you're saying. I can't believe that you're genuine about your thoughts. You're not genuine about your actions. You're not genuine. And I, I got a problem with people who are like that, man. I don't like to talk to those people, the Al Sharptons of the world. Man, I just can't do it. But you want to get the literacy rates higher? Yeah, put fathers back in the home. So you have somebody there to tell that kid, no, sit down, take your phone, turn it off, get rid of the games for a little bit, grab that book, read that chapter, and then tell me about that chapter after you've read it. And if that means that as the father, that you've got to read the books that your kids are reading, guess what? Read the books. I did that with my kids, and I'm not Superman. I'm a simple person. I'm not that intelligent a dude. I just read a lot. I look at things, I look at the commonalities, and I look at numbers. And if the numbers don't add up, well, then that thing that you're talking about, that's wrong. If the numbers match up, oh, well, that thing you're talking about, I got you. We're good on that. You know? So that's what I'm saying. Now, why am I saying all this about the fathers? Because Black Lives Matter. They talk about state sanctioned violence and anti black racism. They say work vigorously for freedom and justice for black people and by extension, all people. Do you see the Black Lives Matter guys talking about that? Do you when they have the megaphone and they're screaming and yelling, when you see one on TV, when you're listening to their leaders and their leaders say that they are Marxists, I'm not calling them that. They call themselves that. Well, if you're a Marxist, that means that the state is in charge of everything, including the family. So if you've got that state is including the family, then you don't need the fathers. Well, how's that working out for all those socialist countries? How are they doing? How are they performing on the world stage? Not all that good. And again, in this country, we have an absentee father problem in the black community. How's that working out for us? Again, I go through all those things: graduating high school, high illiteracy rates, going to jail, out of wedlock pregnancy, joblessness, all those bad things. Again, they have that one commonality: single parent household. They also say we acknowledge, respect, and celebrate differences and commonalities. Do you hear them saying that when they've got the bullhorn? Do you see them talking about that on interviews, that they celebrate the differences and commonalities? No, because what they say about white people is insane. All white people, by definition, are racist. How do you prove that? How do you quantify that in any way? I don't know what's in another man's heart. I just don't. I got to go by their behaviors. I got to go by what they do. And if I don't see racist behavior, well, then that person's not a racist. I don't know why that's such a difficult concept to understand. I don't know why that's a difficult concept to employ. Meanwhile, you got people out there screaming and yelling that this person's a racist, this person's a racist, this person's a racist. And my favorite, black people can't be racist because in order for you to be a racist, you have to have power, and black people don't have power. My father worked his butt off to get out of the inner city. He went to college, got out of college, went to work for a major company, saved up his money, worked his butt off to support his family, my mother and my brothers and I, and started his own business. And my father's business was into several times. My father opened up a business in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. His business was broken into several times, never by the white man, by the black man. So again, I say that if there's this raving, if there's all this attack on black people, and black people can't do this and black people can't do that, how was my father able to do it? My father's friends were also all entrepreneurs. He had black friends, he had black and Hawaiian friends, he had Jewish friends, and everything else. And I just don't understand it. The first time I met my father's friend, um, one of his friends, he was an importer. I thought it was amazing because I couldn't understand how that business worked. And he sat me down and he explained to me how his import business worked, and he started it himself. And this is I'm going back into the early '80s. I'm an old man, and this is what my father's friend was doing. My father had another friend who he had his own carpet business. Where's this attack? Where is this oppression of black people when I was surrounded by all these black men who started their own businesses or worked for a major business in a very very high level position. How did that happen? I mean, were they the anomaly? My father was just lucky that he found all these guys. No, he was a businessman, and he started making contacts and started networking and became friends with these other black men who were doing things. And they gave jobs to their sons and so on and so forth and everything else. And that was black people helping black people. I think that that's a pretty good thing. But how could you do that with all this oppression? How can you do this when there's a systematic destruction of black people in the United States? How is that possible? And again, this is back in the late '70s, early '80s. You know, that's 40 years ago. How did that happen? Were they able to hide under the cracks? Were they able to sneak under the cracks? How was that possible? And are you going to tell me that things today are not better than the way things were 40 years ago, the way things were 60 years ago, the way things were 100 years ago? How is this possible? If Black Lives Matter is correct, how are those things? How do we have rappers and how do we have Hollywood people who are black making millions of dollars for their performances? How is that possible if they're all being, well, Tom, we don't, well, Bill, well, Bob, well, Jim is able to, well, no. If there's oppression, if there is a systematic attack, then those black folks can't do it. They can't do it. They should not have been able to do it, and yet somehow they are. How is there? How did the Death Row Records? How did that label happen? I don't understand. There's all this oppression, and yet somehow these inner city youths were able to get together, organize, and make one of the most lucrative and one of the most successful record labels in the world. And they're still doing it today on different labels. Guys who are marketing themselves. Where are all these athletes that are under attack? They're poor. They're slaves because the guy who owns the team is called the owner, so that makes them slaves. No, it's a ridiculous idea. It's stupid. And yet these guys are running around saying how they're slaves. No, you can't be a slave if you live in a mansion. You can't be a slave if you have 12 Lamborghinis. You can't be a slave if you're making millions of dollars. You certainly can't be a slave if you're making millions of dollars in the sport, and then you also make double that kind of millions of dollars because you get a sneaker deal. But slaves aren't millionaires. And I don't mean to demean those guys. I don't mean to, take them for granted. They have a skill that they work real hard at, and they cultivate that skill, and they go to an amazing level of expertise in that skill. That's why they're professional athletes. They're making millions of dollars. Where's the oppression at? They're treated like thoroughbred horses. They are wined, they are dined. If they need something, they get it. Tell me how they're slaves, please. I just don't understand it. And you're going to have a problem because the guy who owns the team is called the owner. He owns the team. His name is the name that's on the check that you get to put in the bank for $21 million a year. The level of money that professional athletes make is so far and away above what the average person is ever going to get paid that we can't even mentally conceptualize it. We just can't. If I said to you, I'm going to give you $21 million, what are you going to do? I'm going to buy an island. Yeah, that's silly. The idea we can't even comprehend what we would do with that kind of money. We just can't. Or I'm sorry, I'll put it this way. I can't. I really can't. I can't even conceptualize that. Patrick Mahomes, the amount of money he just signed for his contract, I I I can't even fathom what to do with that kind of money. But he's making it. But somehow I got to say that he's oppressed. He's been systematically damaged by the United States. No, he couldn't make that money anywhere else. He just couldn't. So again, this state, another thing, the state sanctioned violence and anti-black racism. I'm sorry, man. I just don't see it. Just don't see it. Another thing they say, work vigorously for freedom and justice for black people and by extension, all people. I'm looking at the riots, I'm looking at the protests, and I don't see the extension all people part. All I hear is black people. They're not taking care of black people, but that's all I hear. They're not saying we got to take care of everybody. We need everybody to get, equal treatment under the law, which is part of the Constitution, by the way. And when we don't see equal protection under the law, and you can make your arguments about it and so on and so forth, and I'm okay with it. However, I would caution you looking at every single case individually. If you have somebody who is being found guilty of murder one, and they're being sent away for 25 years, and let's say that person is black, you have a white person who is guilty of murder one, and they are being sent away for 15 years. The first thing you need to do is you need to look at where the two murders happened. Did they happen in the same municipality? Because that matters. Because there are certain states that have this as their penalty for that, and they have other states that have this as their penalty for certain things. You can't compare it unless it's in the same state and in the same municipality. That's the first thing. If you can get 25 years in New York for killing somebody, and you're only going to get 15 years in, let's say, Idaho for killing somebody, you can't say, well, no, it's unfair. No, it's a different state. So let's cut that right there. Secondly, is it has to be the exact same type of crime. Both guys killed the guy with a machete. Both guys killed the guy with the gun. Both guys bashed him in the head, same, because that matters as well. What kind of weapon was it? Then you also have to look at the record of the individual. Is this somebody who's a repeat offender? Or is this somebody who they did it once? You also have to look at the extenuating circumstances of when the police got there. What happened? Did the person give up to the police, or did the person fight the police? And we've talked about this before, this whole compliance thing. So black people tend to get more roughed up than white people when they get arrested. That is a statistical fact. I will not argue that. My question, however, is why is that? What happened? Why did that black person get roughed up by that cop? Was that cop overzealous, or was that black person not complying with the officer? Because most of the time with white folks, the officer says, put up your hands, they put up your hands. You say to one of the white guys, hey, listen, man, I need you to drop to the ground on your belly. They drop to the ground on their belly. Black folks know we got to yell, we got to scream, we got to start saying, get away from me, we got to fight, we got to wrestle with them a little bit. We're going for their gun. That's what happened with Rayshard Brooks. Rayshard Brooks right now If he had not beat the snot out of those two police officers, he would be alive today. We're going to talk about George Floyd on another podcast, but George Floyd, if he had not been saying "I can't breathe" the entire time they were talking to him, while they were walking with him, while they were standing with him, while they were going into the car with him, then perhaps maybe they would have believed him when he was on the ground saying "I can't breathe." And don't get me wrong, that was murder. That cop put his knee on his neck and cuffed him. And once a perpetrator is cuffed and on the ground, that person is no longer dangerous to the police. For that cop to put his knee on that man's neck, there's no other thing that's going to happen. The man's going to die. That's murder. I give you that. It may not be murder one, but it's certainly murder. But again, what possibly would have happened if George had just taken the handcuffs and said, "All right, put me in the car"? Because they tried to put him in the car and he didn't go. He kept saying, "I can't breathe. I'm claustrophobic. Don't put me in that car. Don't put me in that car." If he had said, "Okay, cool," and allowed and put him in the car, he might be alive today too. So that compliance on what the officer is doing, listening to the officer's orders, that matters as well. So let's put that on the back burner, so to speak. But again, it's something to consider. You've got to look at the full case. Being lazy, intellectually lazy with these things, we just can't do that anymore. We're no longer in a position to do that because things are getting hot out there, But I go back to it, and by extension, all people. Do you see that in their actions? Do you see that in the Black Lives Matter action? I do not. I do not. Okay. We acknowledge, respect, and celebrate differences and commonalities. Again, I say I don't see that either. Now, this is going to take me a while, so I apologize, but I want to read these two quotes off of their manifesto. Quote: "We make our spaces family friendly and enable parents to fully participate with their children. We dismantle the patriarchal practice that requires mothers to work double shifts so they can mother in private even as they participate in public justice work." I have no idea what that means. I have no idea what that means. What does it mean that we require mothers to work double shifts? Are you saying that mothers are working too much? Because if that's the case, then you kind of go back to my argument of where is the father? How come the father's not there? Why aren't we? Because if you're talking about that there's a deficiency because the mother's got to work double shift. Well, if there was another parent involved, maybe she wouldn't have to work the double shift. But they don't talk about that. So going back to the big rocks thing, if you want to make a positive impact on the Black community, then you would have the fathers involved. I see nothing in their manifesto about fathers. Nothing. I see mothers, Black folks, but they never specifically talk about fathers, and they certainly don't talk about the lack of fathers in the Black families in the Black communities. Quote: "We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirements by supporting each other as extended families and villages that collected care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable." Again, I see nothing about fathers. And what I actually see is when they specifically say that we disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirements. Well, one of the requirements of having a nuclear family is the father. Where is the father? Why aren't we talking about the father? No, we are. What we're saying is we got to get rid of the father because here's the deal. You have a father in the house. The father is going to be able to discipline the kids. And I don't mean beating your kids. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about having structure in place so that mom doesn't have to work 2 shifts. Having somebody there to teach young men how to be a man. My father taught me and my brothers how to be a man. I'll never forget when we still lived in Philly. We were walking from our house to my grandmother's house, and it was Easter Sunday. And my father, we were all dressed up. This is back in the days when you used to get dressed up in your everybody had that Easter outfit, right? So we got all dressed up in these brand new outfits for Easter because Easter is when you showed out. And my father's walking and he teaches me and my brothers and he says to us, "This is how a man walks." And my father on that Easter Sunday showed me and my brothers how to walk like a man with your head up, your chin up, eyes straight ahead, your chest out, your back straight, your shoulders back. This is how a man walks. My father taught us how to do that. If I didn't have a father in the house, would my mother have been able to teach? Would my mother have even thought to teach us how to walk like a man? I have no idea. Because fortunately for me, I had a mother and a father in the house, so my father was there to teach me how to be. This is how a man speaks. This is how a man behaves. This is how a man walks. Something as simple as this is how a man walks. Taught to me by my father. Meanwhile, the Black Lives Matter people want to get my father out. Why? Because if I don't have a father, who do I turn to? I turn to the streets. Or I'll turn to them. And is that what they want? I don't know. All I'm telling you though is that everything I see here is that they want to get rid of fathers. And what's been the biggest detrimental component of the black community over the last, I see, figure the Great Society, 1967. So you're thinking 50, let's say 53 years. Well, that it coincides. Is it causation and correlation? A solid argument can be made that the destruction of the nuclear family has had really, really bad lasting effects on the black community. And what is it that they are saying on their own manifesto? They want to destroy the family unit. They want to destroy it. Now you say, yeah, but they're talking about collectives and they're talking about getting the families and villages together to take care of everybody and everything else. Yeah, historically speaking, has that worked all that well? Because on a large scale, because I haven't seen it. Because here's the deal: if it did work, then humans would naturally gravitate to doing that. And unfortunately, it just doesn't. Because when you have the collective, when you've got the village involved, well, there's a couple idiots in the village. And it's always easier to tear down than it is to build up. You can take somebody and you can build that person up and get them to have a lot of confidence. You need one guy to walk by and say, "Hey, you look kind of fat in those pants." And boom, that person's confidence is shook. No, you need the fathers. I do not need Black Lives Matter to get some collective, get some village, get some neighborhood together. No, I need the fathers back in the house. And Black Lives Matter says, no, you don't. We're going to destroy that. That's a bad thing. Well, historically speaking, has it worked? Have we had all these good things happen because of the fathers being out of the house? No, no, it's been the exact opposite. Why would I do that? All right. Now, so let's. I just want to give you some breakdown on this. Give you some perspective on all this Black Death and everything. So again, Black Lives Matter. They're all about taking care of black folks, right? Have you heard Black Lives Matter talk about abortions? Have you done that? Because with abortions from 1965 to 2018, and those are the best numbers I can find, so that's why I'm going 1965 to 2018. There have been 18,700,000 black abortions in this country. I'll say it again. From 1965 to 2018, we have aborted 18,700,000 black people in this country. The total amount, population wise, 60,500,000 abortions. If you tell me you care about all people, the first thing you got to talk about is abortions, because that is a death rate that can be controlled. We're not talking about disease. We're not talking about cancer, heart disease, because we're, one third of the country is obese. 25% of the kids in this country are obese. We can control that. Cut down on your portions. Stop eating so much refined sugar. Boom, we're done. Cool, good. No, but this is something that can be controlled. These are children that are being killed. The one thing about an abortion is that if it is successful, well, the result of that successful abortion is the death of a human being. 60,500,000 people have been aborted in this country, and of that 60,500,000 people who have been killed in this country as a result of abortion, 18,700,000 of them were black folks. Now, you explain that to me, that we are over 25% of the total amount of abortions in this country. Where is black life? You want to save black people? You want to put a dent in how many black people are being killed in this country? And I don't want to get into the argument, is an abortion death or any of that. It's really simple. When there's an abortion, the human heart is stopped. And we can go with the euphemisms and say it's a fetus or an embryo or blah, blah, blah. The bottom line is, you've got a human being that's developing in the womb. And when you have an abortion, that human being ceases to be. They die. Well, it's a woman's right. I'm not going to get into that right now. I'm just saying the basic facts. Get rid of the euphemisms, get rid of the poetry, get rid of the philosophy. The bottom line is, when you have an abortion, you are causing the death of a human being. 18,700,000 human beings that were black killed in this country between 1965 and 2018. We average somewhere around 100,000 a year. That's a lot of death. Where's Black Lives Matter? Hey, black women, stop aborting your children. Why are you aborting your children? Well, I got no man in the house. I got no man to help me. And so I can't afford to have a baby. Cool, no problem. Black men, go back into the house. Go back into the family. Support that child. You want to make a dent in how many black people die during the course of it? Do that. Let me see you stand up on a pulpit, stand up with a megaphone, stand up with a bullhorn in front of church, or in the park or on the street. Talk about that, and then I'll start listening to you a little bit. Now let's talk about shooting deaths, police officers. So there's been a lot of argument about conservatives coming out, and I'm one of them, saying that anywhere from 9 to 15 black people were killed by police officers when they were unarmed last year, 2019. So I've had people tell me, "Well, Tom, that number's wrong. It's this and that and everything else." And I've done my argument. Okay, multiply it by a factor of 10. How many people do you get? You get about 100 people. So people say to me, that no, we're killing all these black people and everything. So I just want to again give you the numbers. So people shot to death by police this year, as of July 29, so not even a month old. These are fresh numbers. In the year 2020, there have been 111 people killed by police officers. Now, that is a blanket number. That's not, and that's people who are shot. So we can play the game. Yeah, but that's not including the people who were killed by police officers in car accidents, or by tasers, or by knives, or by only just shooting death. Well, I mean, we can play that game all day and everything, but here's the deal: you're talking about people being shot by police. So people being shot by police so far this year, as of July 29, 111. Total amount of people who have been shot by police this year, 558. We're one fifth. Now, here's your argument, and I get it. We're somewhere around, you know, 15, what is it, 1/10 of the population. There's about 330 million black people in the country, and or excuse me, there's 330 million people in the country. Depending on which way you want to go, some people can argue 320, and you can argue up to 350, depending on how good you think your statistics are on illegal aliens. But roundabout about 330 million, and black people comprise 15%. And of that 15%, most of the black people that are being killed are men. So again, now let's have fun. So you have 15% of the 15% are black people. Okay. Well, most of those people that are going to be shot or are involved in criminal activity are men. So let's take that 15%, bring it down to 7.5%. Okay. So there's the men. So now we're 7.5% of the population. Okay, cool. But now most of the men that are involved in crime are between 15 and 30, which if you do that, that's about what? One third, maybe one fourth of how many black men there are. Because, you don't have a lot of 10-year-olds out there shooting up people with 9 mils. You also don't have a bunch of 80-year-old black men, forming gangs to, start hurting people. So you take that 7.5 and let's just have fun with it. Let's cut it in half. And I'm being nice about it. So now you're at 3.25% of the population. So 3.25% of the population is doing most of the killing, is doing most of the rape, most of the uh, uh, breaking and entering, and most of the violent crimes are being done by those guys. That's a small population. And if you're a police officer or if you're an intelligent person, you will profile. And the reason why you profile is because it's unintelligent not to profile. If somebody says that I was just beaten up, well, okay, well, who beat you up? Oh, I don't know who did it. Okay, we'll describe him. Well, he was black. He looked like he was in his mid 20s. He was about 130 pounds. He was real dark skinned, and he had dreadlocks. Okay, cool. Now, if I look up and I see a blonde lady walking down the street who weighs 105 pounds and she's 5'10", I'm not going to talk to her about that crime because she doesn't fit the profile. It's just that simple. We all profile. If you're walking down the street at 1 o'clock in the morning and a group of rambunctious young men, I don't care what color they are, that are screaming and yelling and cursing and throwing bottles at houses and stuff, and they're walking towards you, your brain is going to say, hey, those guys look like they might be dangerous. Let me hop over to the other side of the street, or let me go the opposite way, or let me just hide and wait until they come by. You're profiling, because the profile is, well, a bunch of young men that are acting rambunctious and doing violence might possibly hurt me. So I'm going to guard against that. I'm going to protect myself against that. If you didn't do that, then you would just be unintelligent. That's profiling. So yeah, profiling is a good thing. When it's based on fact, profiling is a beautiful thing. So, in any case, I wanted to give those numbers out. So when you start talking about all these deaths and everything, well, the numbers just don't show it. Now, here's the other thing. I just want to, as my final thought on this, are we getting rid of swimming pools? Because if we're getting rid of police, because they're killing all these black people, even though the numbers don't show it. Or if you say to me, one life matters, because I know that there are certain people who are being killed by police who are innocent. Mistakes happen. It's an unfortunate thing. There is no system that is perfect. I don't want anyone to be killed by police. I want police to protect themselves, and I want police to go home at the end of their shift, and I want police to follow the law. And if you have a policeman who is not following the law, that policeman needs to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Just that simple. I don't care who it was, don't care what that's just the way it is. But if you're saying to me that 111 people in 2020 so far is too many, and by the way, I'll give you the stats just for SAGs, just for SAGs. 2017, 223 black people shot by the police. 223 shot by the police. 2018, 209. 2019, 235. And again, in 2020, where all of these Black Lives Matter people are running around screaming and yelling about how we're killing all of these black people, we had 111 deaths so far this year. So now, why am I talking about swimming pools? Because, ladies and gentlemen, we lose on average over 3,000 people a year in swimming pools. I'm not even talking about boating accidents. I'm talking about just in swimming pools. We lose over 3,000 people a year for that. Is there a national outcry to get rid of swimming pools? Because again, if one life is ended, then we should get rid of that police department. We should defund this police department. Well, if that's the case, and I use that same argument for swimming pools, then by definition, we need to get rid of the swimming pools. Are we going to get rid of the swimming pools? Is anyone talking about getting rid of the swimming pools? Why is that? Well, because we like swimming pools. Oh, okay. But we're losing over 3,000 people a year to death in swimming pools. Why are we getting rid? Well, that would be ridiculous. Oh. Well, if it's ridiculous to get rid of the swimming pools, why would we talk about getting rid of police officers? Have you seen what's happening in the cities that are defunding police officers? Have you seen what's happening in cities that are getting rid of police officers? Have you looked at Portland? Have you looked at New York City? Have you looked at what's happened in Baltimore? Have you looked at what's happening in Chicago? Increasing in crime of 150%, 200%, 220%. And most of those deaths, brown-skinned people. But it's an intelligent thing to get rid of the police department. It's an intelligent thing to defund the police department. We're not getting rid of them, we're defunding them. Oh, great euphemism. So let me tell you what happens, this defunding thing. When you defund a police department, the two biggest parts that get money taken away is their equipment and their training. One of those pieces of equipment, and this is for the people who are up in arms about the Breonna Taylor situation, is that there's no video. Now, I thought that most police departments had body cams and dash cams because that was the thing. We're going to get body cams and dash cams for all police departments. Well, why is that? Because the body cam, the police, the body cam, the dash cam, for the police, it keeps everybody honest. You got a policeman who wants to be a rogue officer and do all kinds of off-the-wall crazy things. Well, that if he's willing to have himself videotaped while he's doing it, well, he's an idiot. He needs to be removed from the police department. He's going to get caught very easily. So it keeps the honest cops honest, and it keeps the dishonest cops from doing stupid stuff. So you got the body cam. In Breonna Taylor, no body cam. Shoot. So that means we don't really know what happened in that room. We've got to go by what the officers say, because there were more than one. And they say somebody moved when they told them not to move. And again, we get in that compliance thing. Just listen to what the police officer tells you to do and do it. And do nothing else. No, we don't have that. So we don't have the body cams. All right, well, shoot. Now what do we do? All right, well, we've gotten rid of their equipment, so let's cut back on the training. Well, wait a minute. Isn't the training the thing that's going to help the police officers to better handle a situation because we're training it, we're role playing it, we're drilling it, and so on and so forth. Yeah, no, we're defunding. We're gonna deprive them of the two things, the two aspects of their job that would make the biggest difference in better policing in this country. That's intelligent. That's a great plan. Let's go. Let's put that in action. Black Lives Matter people. No, we've got. Does it make sense to do it? Does it make sense to do it? I don't see it. I don't see it. The numbers don't match. The processes don't match. The outcomes that they're saying are going to happen based on what they're trying to do, they just don't. It's not logical. It's not what's going to happen. And I don't understand how this is up for conversation. These are simple things. We're not talking rocket science. You want police officers to be better equipped so they can do their job better. You want police officers better trained so that they can do their job better. And most of the time, when you have a police officer situation, where is it happening? It's happening in the urban centers. It's happening in the cities. And guess who's in the urban centers and in the cities? Brown skinned people. Why would you want to hurt brown skinned people if the name of your organization is Black Lives Matter? It's not logical. It makes no sense. And if you're upset about this, good. I'm glad you're upset. If you're upset and you're mad because you agree with me and you don't understand what's going on, good. Now you're going to stand up and do something about it. And you're going to, when you see those Black Lives Matter people like I have, and say, guys, you got it all wrong. Let's talk about this. Not let's yell and scream at each other. No, let's talk about this. And if you're talking to somebody who is just yelling and screaming at you, stop talking to them because you can't talk to somebody who's yelling and screaming at you. Hey, listen, do me a favor, pal. When you calm down and you're able to and you're willing to have a rational adult conversation, let's get together. Here's my name. Here's my number. Give me a call. I'll buy you breakfast. Let's go and talk. If you're upset about this because you disagree, cool. Disagree with me. Give me your facts. Show me where I'm wrong because I would love to be proven wrong on this, but unfortunately, I've pretty much been right about everything that's happening. The only thing I was wrong about was I thought that the violence that was going to happen in the spring and summer and fall of 2020, I thought the catalyst of the violence was going to be some woman who was a conservative white lady at a gas station with her children being surrounded by Black Lives Matter people. And she was going to get so afraid of them that she was going to pull out her gun that she was legally able to carry and shoot guys, and then get in her car and drive away and leave them in the street dead because she was afraid that these Black Lives Matter guys were going to hurt her or her children. That's what I kept saying to everybody. I happen to be wrong about that, but I'm not wrong about the violence. I've been warning about this for years. And I said that there's going to be blood on the streets in 2020. And look what's happening. We've got blood on the street in 2020. And we've got black people hurting black people. We got black people going into, again, I want to go into the marches on this. I just want to talk about the Black Lives Matter, their mentality, their manifesto, their way of handling this, what they say, what their process is, what they want to put into place, however you want to say it. It just doesn't add up to helping black people. It just doesn't. What it does is it harms black people that much more. It divides us that much more, not just from white people, but from other black people, because you got other black folks out there like me going, what are you people doing? This is not helping me. You're hurting me. Why would you do this? You want to help me? Get the fathers back into the homes. Tell fathers they need to be fathers. You got an urban sprinkler out there who's got 5 different kids from 5 different mothers. Guess what you need to do? You need to divide your time between work and taking care of those 5 kids. If you can't be with the mothers, cool, no problem. Take care of the kids. You're going to be a terrible husband, no problem. You're going to be a fantastic father. That's what we expect out of you as black folks. That's what we expect out of you as in the black community. If you can't be with that woman for whatever reason, She crazy. Okay, cool, no problem. You're going to be a fantastic father. That's what you're going to do. Anything else, I, waste of time. Absolute waste of time. I know I went a little long on this. I'm sorry about that, but it's been something that's been driving me nuts. Hope everybody has a great rest of the year. I hope all this nonsense starts to go away, and I hope it goes away fast. I'm really concerned about my brothers and sisters out there with this stuff. I hope we really just start talking to each other instead of screaming and yelling. Screaming and yelling does not help. And like I said before, if you're trying to talk to somebody who's screaming and yelling, yeah, after a while, if you're trying to talk to them and they're just not listening, you're kind of wasting your time. You may want to try to talk to their friend or talk to another dude, talk to another woman. Actually have that listen, you're yelling and screaming. Let's talk. Tell me what the issue is. Our job is to raise each other up. Our job is to help each other. We can mentor each other. We can be that positive influence in somebody else's life. All you gotta do is reach out. You know, a young kid out there who needs that fatherly figure, that strong figure in their life. Just hey, listen, you know, my name is whatever, whatever, and I see you're struggling with this and that. Why don't we go and why don't we talk? And then you keep the communication strong with that person. You talk to them, you know, every week. You talk to them every day if you need to. You talk to them once a month. You know, whatever it is, you you talk to that person. You help them out. The screaming and yelling thing, the killing each other, the violence towards each other. That's what Black Lives Matter is doing. In their manifesto, it reads what they're very honest about what it is that their plan is. If you don't agree with that plan, then you can't support Black Lives Matter. You cannot divorce the sentiment from the organization. And if you're able to do that, then you got to let the Confederate flag go. You got to let the Confederate flag fly for whoever else wants it because it's the same thing. You don't like it? Tough. I get it. For those of you out there who agree with me, please take this message to other people. But the violence, that's got to stop. We can't be number one in all these violent categories towards each other. We can't do it. So I got a little preachy at the end there. I apologize. But again, everybody enjoy. Hope you have a great rest of the summer. Stay safe with the COVID thing. Do whatever you think you need to do to keep your family and keep yourself safe on that. I will talk to you soon. Thanks for playing along. Bye.